Okay, so this will be an interesting problem. We have a circle with radius 3 feet, and it's mounted with its center 4 feet off the ground. So there's a diagram here. The radius is 3, and then this from the ground up to the center of the circle is 4 feet. They're kind of little. I don't know if you can see the numbers. The point closest to the ground is labeled P. So there's a point right here at the bottom of the circle, you might say, and that's labeled P. Sketch a graph of the height above the ground of the point P as the circle is rotated. Then find a function that gives the height in terms of the angle of rotation. So first they ask us to graph it. So let's think about, starting down here. It hasn't rotated any, and how far off the ground is it? 1 foot, right? So this is going to be an x and a y. X will be how much it's rotated, and y is going to tell us the height off the ground. So that point then is 0, no rotation, comma, 1. All right, so this is in rotation, like our x, and then this is height. Now I don't have a very big piece of graph paper here, so maybe I will count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay. And then I'm going to be rotating around the circle. So I'll go ahead and mark that as 2 pi. And then cut it in half. That'll be pi. This will be pi over 2, and this will be 3 pi over 2. Okay, so now we can start graphing. This first point, 0 rotation, and it's 1 foot off the ground. Okay. There's my point right there at 1. Remember, I counted by 2s. I should label that. So this is 2, 6, like that. Okay. So now when I go halfway around the circle, so now I'm right here at this point. I've rotated 90 degrees, or pi over 2. So this point would be pi over 2. That's the rotation. And then how far off the ground am I? Well, now I'm 4 feet off the ground. Okay, so pi over 2, 4 feet. That would be a point right there. All right, now I'm going to rotate more and get here to the top of the circle. So I have rotated from the bottom all the way up to the top. I've gone pi units, halfway around the circle, okay? And what is that height then? So here I am, the rotation is pi, and the height is, well, I've got 4 feet plus 3 feet, which is going to be 7 feet off the ground. So at pi, it's going to be 7. Okay. Now I'm going to come around the circle to this point, another pi over 2. So now I'm at 3 pi over 2, 3/4 of the way around the circle, and I'm back to being 4 feet off the ground. So that point would be right there. And then once I get all the way around the circle, I've rotated 2 pi, and I'm a foot off the ground. Okay? So this curve for one time around the circle looks like that. So the question is, do you think it's a sine curve? Do you think it's a cosine curve? Or what are you going to want to go with? Well, think about this point here, a minimum, and it's at 0. So we're going to go with cosine. Okay. And then it looks like now what does the cosine curve look like? Well, let's go back and look at the cosine curve for a minute. If this is 2 pi, okay, well, I should draw it probably a little bit closer to, so you don't get confused. I'm going to be counting by 1 there. Okay, so just up 1 and down 1. So the cosine curve says I start at 0, 1, and then I come down to pi over 2. Let's see. Yeah, pi over 2, 0. And then at pi, I'm at -1. Didn't put the pi symbol in there. And 3 pi over 2, I'm back to 0, and then 2 pi, I'm up to 1. So this would be the regular cosine curve. And how has it changed then? Well, it's got a stretch to it, right? Instead of going up to 1 and down to 1, you know the radius is 3. So that's going to be your A. Okay? But it's upside down, so it's going to have to be a -3. So we're going to put -3 in front of cosine. Cosine of x is fine. But then where's that midline? The midline was right here. Okay, so that was the midline at y equals 4. And so that means d is 4. So if I'm following the form, y equals a cosine bx plus, or minus, it's supposed to be minus c plus d, then I have an a. I know it's -3. That's a. It doesn't look like there's a phase shift or a period change. So b is going to be 1. There's no period change in period. No. We'll just say the period's 2 pi. Period is 2 pi. So there's no change in the period. And then there's no phase shift. So c equals 0, no phase shift. And then d was 4. Whole thing shifted up 4 units. So that gives us y equals -3 cosine x plus 4. And you could try that. You could plug in some values, make a table of values, make sure that it all works out. But it's going to, because we already graphed it. So that was fun.